Comrades and friends, I hope you can hear me. I will try and speak up. Comrades and friends, I just want to say a couple of things, particularly about the media. First of all, the Morning Star is the only daily newspaper which is on the side of Labour and not on the side of capital. The second thing is, the reason why there is a media war on Labour is because our manifesto in 2017 was for the many, not the few, and we are the many and they are the few. And we were led, and we are led, by a principled leader with integrity. And I tell you what, Jeremy Corbyn will be the next Prime Minister of this country, not despite the fact he's got principles and integrity, but precisely because of the fact he's got principles and integrity. And the reason why there is a media war on us as well is because 13 million people voted for that manifesto, which had us once again talking openly about public ownership. It had us once again saying that we were against austerity and we were going to start to invest in our people, in our communities and in our public services. And it was a manifesto that once again spelt out that we were a Labour Party worthy of the name, that wanted to see a redistribution not just of wealth, but a redistribution of power. I'm glad that Ben is still here to my left, because I would rather be a poacher than a gamekeeper. And I have to say this, Ben said in his opening remarks that there was only one newspaper in 2015 that supported Jeremy Corbyn's leadership for the interests of press accuracy. The Daily Record in Scotland also supported Jeremy Corbyn's leadership in 2015. Which leads me to a point I want to make about something which happened exactly 4 weeks ago tonight in Scotland. Because the Daily Record's sister newspaper is the Sunday Mail. And 4 weeks ago tonight, Scottish Government ministers served an interim interdict to try to stop the publication of the Sunday Mail. Because the Sunday Mail was running the story of a violent prison incident, after which a young guy called Alan Marshall died. And the story was published in the public interest. They used pixelated stills of CCTV footage. But in the dead of the night, the Scottish Government and the Scottish Prison Service tried to censor it. And at 12:30, midnight, finally the government dropped their case and the Sunday Mail came out on the 25th of August 2019. And the reason I relay that is because no matter what is said at this meeting tonight, we stand by the freedom of the press. It's the distortion of the press that we are against. And just think on this. Here we have the Scottish Government, with the sanctioning of the Cabinet Secretary for Justice in Scotland, trying to censor the publication of Scotland's biggest selling Sunday newspaper. So the free press is important in a democracy. We know, and other speakers have spoken about the immense power which the media have, and it's not just about the personal attacks. It's also about what they report and what they do not report. And let me give you a recent example. Last Friday, John MacDonald came to Glasgow. Last time John came to Edinburgh, we had a few problems, so he came to Glasgow this time. John came to Glasgow. And we trailed the speech the day before. John was going to speak about economic transformation, and I was going to speak about democratic transformation and renewal. And when we were interviewed by the broadcast media, they didn't want to speak about any of that. They wanted to speak about what our position was on a second independence referendum. They wanted to know about what our position was on Brexit. Tom Watson had made a speech that week. and they wanted to know where we stood on the position of a suspended councillor in the south of Scotland. They did not want to ask about those important questions about how we're going to transform our economy and how this Labour Party is going to renew our democracy as well. So they didn't want to speak about the shift in the balance of power that we mean to make from owners to workers, from landlords to tenants, from the state to citizens, yes, and from men to women as well. The rebalancing of power that we need in our society. They didn't want to speak about our plans for the abolition of the House of Lords. The decentralisation of power we speak, or the land reform we need in Scotland. There was a nice picture of me and John in the Scotsman newspaper on Saturday morning, and the London Times in its Scottish edition actually did feature quite an in-depth piece about land reform, presumably on behalf of its aristocratic leadership. But they are the only newspaper that gave it decent coverage was the Morning Star, and Ben said that he will put a full-page spread on it as well, because these are important ideas that we've got, and in the end we will win a battle of ideas if we can get our ideas over. Yesterday I was in Glasgow and I was walking along a street called Howard Street. Howard Street used to be the headquarters of the ILP. It's where the Forward newspaper was published. And one of the editors over the years, one of them was Emrys Hughes, Keir Hardy's son-in-law. One of them was a guy called Tom Johnson. Tom Johnson said that a people which does not understand its history will not comprehend the present, nor mould the future. So we need to learn the lessons from our history and inject those into what we're doing in the present, but also into our vision for the future. So let me finish up with some practical ideas. First of all, I say this to myself and to other people who have spoken today. The role of the leadership of this party is to vigorously defend the grassroots of this party. Because if we don't defend the membership and organisation of this party, who else will? And I tell you what, if we don't defend it, it will be open season on us from all channels of the media. Secondly, we need to use all the available media space that we can get to challenge all of those false accounts about us. You know, it was Harold Wilson who used to say the Labour Party is always good value for money at its conference, because there is one version that you read about in the newspapers and there's the other one you experience when you're actually here. So there will be false accounts this week, and we need to get out there and challenge them. And I have to say that part of our role is to try to push the media to do better. And again, Ben mentioned this in his excellent contribution. The truth is that many parts of the media are suffering severe cuts in their newsrooms. And so it is harder for journalists to turn around properly researched stories. And that's why we as a party will not only support the RNT when they are in dispute, we should support the NUJ when they are in dispute as well. We need to educate people on misinformation, and we need to do more to establish a proper statutory right of reply. Thirdly, we need to encourage members and supporters to use all the available space to put across Labour's case in the social media. And I'm bound to say that one of the people that we miss most of all is a guy called Simon Baker, who died just a few weeks ago, who was a great pioneer of giving working class people a voice in the media, in the social media, and he is dearly missed, and we are going to rerun one of the parts political broadcasts that Simon produced for us in the Scottish Labour Party over the course of the next few days. But the social media is important, but we also need to use those avenues like phone-ins, like letters, like texts and tweets to live programmes when they are broadcast. We need to be organised more than the other lot. And we need to understand as well that our job is to make sure that the false views are rejected, that we take it upon ourselves to inform the public, and we press forward with our clear alternative. Ultimately, and this is my final point, there is a question about the right to own, because with ownership comes power. And the NUJ have a charter in which they call for a right for journalists and other workers involved in the media to be able to bid for a newspaper title if it's put up for sale or facing closure. And that's the kind of principle that we've been talking about across the whole of industry, that there ought to be a statutory preferential right for workers to buy the business or the organisation that they work for. So we should see that installed, so that we can see the spread of more cooperatives beyond the Morning Star, so that we can see the growth of investigative journalist houses like the Ferret and other organisations, because for me the conception of common ownership has always been much more about a mosaic and not a monolith. We need to see initiative from below and not just top down. Richard Bergen ended on a quote of Tony Benn, and I've got a quote of Tony Benn to finish on as well. Fortunately, it's not the same one that Richard used. Tony Benn said this in 1981. He said, "The free flow of information is the lifeblood of democracy, and the present ownership structure and organisation of our media is incompatible with democracy." And that was before the internet, Twitter and Facebook. That was even before Murdoch took on the trade unions at Wapping and Kinning Park in Glasgow. It was before we had satellite and cable TV. It was before we had the even greater concentration of ownership that we see now. So it was true then, it's even truer now, and we need to be determined as a movement. And that will require us to build up our confidence. That will require us to be confident in our own democratic tradition, and confident in the ideals of socialism, which at all times should guide us. Thank you very much indeed.